the glass was in a million pieces on the floor. And I thought, oh crud. Welcome back, everyone. It is a beautiful sunny day in Michigan, and this is Thankful Thriftiness. Have you ever gotten something that you had really been hoping for and then broke it like the day after you got it? Okay, maybe it was the day I got it. Here is how I fixed something I broke into a million pieces. For my bridal shower, my sweet friend gave me this big Yankee candle that was supposed to burn, what was it, for like 24 hours or 3 days, something, I don't know. It was a long time. And I was really excited because I'd been hoping for a candle and it smelled so wonderful. When we were downstairs after the bridal shower, cleaning up, sorting everything out, it got set on top of something. It was my fault entirely. I don't know what happened, but the next minute I turn around and it's shattered into a million pieces on the floor. The candle itself was intact, but everything else was shattered. I was pretty upset because obviously it was my fault and I had been wanting a candle. But there was really nothing I could do about it. I mean, it's in a million pieces. I can't just set it up and burn it because there's glass shards in it. So I thought, well, what can I do? I could put it in a wax melter, but that's not gonna give the same intensity, I guess you could say, of scent. And I really wanted to have a candle to burn. For our wedding, we had these beautiful little tea lights. They're rose gold, and they have, I think you can see here, they've got these little specks in them, and they're really pretty. When you light them, they kind of flicker on the wall and a lot of pretty patterns. I use these a lot. Like, I burn them a lot because it was so pretty around the house, and it's really calming lighting at night. But they burned out pretty quickly. I mean, we used them for the wedding, and then I used a lot of them. In the end, I had 8 empty candle containers and 1 big shattered candle. So I thought to myself, I could keep putting little tea lights in here that only last for like a couple hours. Or I could take that big candle I had and possibly make it into a bunch of smaller candles. I then melted down the big candle and poured the melted wax into an ice cube tray, which worked really well because now you have individual little portions of wax. I tried melting some of it in our wax melter. That didn't go so well. But I knew that once these candles ran out, I could try to refill them with the other wax. That's exactly what I did. First of all, I removed the wick and dug out the little wick anchor, whatever you call that thing, the thing the wick is attached to at the bottom of the candle. I started out by gathering up supplies. I grabbed my 8 little wedding candles, well, empty wedding candles, a hot glue gun, a glass measuring cup, and some pencils. I want to talk about the measuring cup for a second. Wax is really dangerous to get down your drain. The temptation is to just boil water, pour it into whatever is holding the wax, and just pour it down the drain, but that's not what you want to do. I ended up having to buy a glass measuring cup specifically for wax projects because what I do is I end up wiping the wax out mainly. I bought one from Walmart for a few bucks, so they're not that expensive. All right, moving on. For this project, you are also going to need candle wicks. I don't know where everyone buys candle wicks. I bought them from a small business here in Michigan. Where I bought the wicks, they were specified based on the size of diameter of the candle. Mine was approximately 2 inches, so that's the size I got for my candle wicks. Your first step is to heat up your hot glue gun. Then you're gonna wanna measure out how much wax to put in each candle. I had such a hard time figuring out how much wax I would need, and in the end I was so far off from what I originally thought. Originally I thought each candle would need about 1.5 cubes of wax. Turned out it needed more like 2 or 2.5. It worked out because you can literally just add more in on top once the candle is solidified. Anyway, so don't be too harsh on yourself if you don't measure the right amount of wax the first time. You can always go back and heat more up. I then put as much wax as my little measuring cup could hold into it and set the rest aside. In counting out my wicks, I knew I had 8 containers and 10 wicks. So either I'd have 2 wicks left over for another project once these candles run out, or they would help me if I made a mistake. This next step is very important. I made the mistake and then had to go back and fix it. When you take candles that have already been used, there's going to be a little bit of wax residue in the bottom. If you hot glue your candle wicks to that wax residue, it's not gonna stick because the wax will just melt from the hot glue and it'll just be a mess down there. So make sure to remove any wax residue before moving on. If you can plan ahead, don't burn your candles down until they literally go out because there's no more wax. Leave just a little bit in the bottom because it's so much easier to take out in big chunks. I had to scrape pretty hard at the ones where they had burned all the way out because there was just a tiny bit of wax, but that tiny bit really made a lot of difference in how the candle wick stuck. I tried to remove the candle wick anchor, or whatever we're calling it, from the bottom before I began, but they were like super glued on there or something, so I just had to put a big glob of hot glue to almost like cover it up and make a base for the candle wick. Now that you have nice clean candle containers, you're going to want to hot glue your wick, holding the wick with pliers because you could burn your fingers otherwise. Also a mistake I made. Put a nice glob of hot glue on the bottom of your wick, again holding it with pliers, and hold it down inside your candle for, I'd say, about at least 10 seconds to make sure it's nice and firm before you set it to the side. Take your pencil and lay it over the top of your candle container. Then you're gonna take your wick and gently wrap it around your pencil until it's firmly on there. It's not going to stay on perfectly, but because the wick has wax already on it, it will stay approximately where it's supposed to be. It won't be firmly attached to the pencil like I said, but it should stay in position fairly well. If this is your wick, you're gonna wanna make sure that wherever the container ends, the wick is centered. So if that means that your wick is a little to the side when on the pencil, that's okay. Just make sure it's centered wherever the level of wax is going to be. After your wicks are all set and you have everything ready, you're going to want to heat up your wax. You could use a double boiler, which honestly I would recommend over using a microwave. The problem is I didn't know if my little container could hold up to the heat very well in a double boiler, so I used the microwave because I knew it was microwave safe. So have patience and stir only with a plastic spoon. I don't use plastic silverware much, but in this case I would say only use plastic because you can dispose of it versus having to clean it in a sink. Again, you do not want wax in your pipes. After that wax was finally liquid, I poured it very carefully into the candle containers. Check the wick one more time to make sure it's nice and centered before you set it aside to cool. Like I mentioned before, I had to go back and reheat a lot of the wax, even more than I originally thought. So I did it in several rounds. Once your candles are all cool and firm, you're going to trim the candle wicks. I kind of did mine by trial and error. I trimmed mine and then lit the candle, and when I realized that the flame was too high, I trimmed it down. In the end, I settled on something along these lines. I don't know, that's probably like a 1/4 inch. In the end, I had 8 beautiful, wonderful smelling candles. And that's all there is to it. Let me know in the comments below whether you prefer candles or wax melters. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If this video was a help to you or you would like to see videos more like it, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Until next time, have a wonderful day.